In a world where you can create movies alongside one of the best directors of all time, where cinema collides with computers to give you the opportunity to test your skills and take on Hollywood, make a blockbuster hit and crush it at the box office, or go over budget and utterly fail. It's all made possible by an old PC game called Steven Spielberg's Director's Chair. Steven Spielberg was innovative in so many ways with the use of technology in film, and he's made movies that still inspire millions and prove that dreams can become reality. But it wasn't only Spielberg's movies that influenced so many creators to want to get into the movie-making business. He wanted people to become a part of the process, not just a viewer. Because of this, Spielberg was the first director to release a video game where he walked you through the entire movie-making process. From script writing to production to sound design and even movie marketing, Spielberg wanted to immerse gamers and inspire them to strive for their dreams. And today we are going to join Spielberg on the studio lot and make an epic movie. The game greets you with Spielberg himself choosing you to direct the next project. And then at random, there's an earthquake in the game. Like, what the f is going on? That's all they can associate with California? I think it was just a cool flex for developers to add stuff like that in games back then. Anyway, you get assigned a production assistant who essentially provides tutorials throughout the entire game. She's in an old Motorola pager, which I'm too young for pagers, but I remember the old Motorola Razors back then for cell phones. Anyway, you go to sign in on the studio lot and Spielberg clicks a button on the computer and oh my god, the nostalgia. First of all, the 90s beast of a computer alone is nostalgia in itself, but the old screensaver that pops up, kids today do not remember those screensavers, but they are vividly burned into my memory. Because you're a first-time director, you're given a tight budget and a small window of time to make a movie. How do they expect me to make a movie in only 22 days? After you finish signing into the lot, you go through the entire process of making a movie, starting with the script and pre-production. Yo, why is there just one cartoon like penguin-ass looking bird and the rest are just normal? Like, this doesn't make any sense, but I already have a feeling this is like a tie into Alfred Hitchcock in a way. The birds, who knows? Let's go into the pre-production. As you enter every location, Spielberg shares these absolute gems of knowledge with you, so have a pen and pencil by your side to write down his wisdom.
If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage.
In the pre-production room, you meet two writers who will help you with your script, Ted and Terry. These are writers from actual films within the movie industry, which I thought was a really cool way to add people from behind the scenes as cameos. The issue is that Ted and Terry don't like to fucking share or collaborate. They do it all. You click on a scene, drag it to them, they write it, and then you give the quote-unquote okay behind it. You can't even have them rewrite the scenes if you don't like it. You're just stuck with the work that they give you. As you write the script, Vanity Newspaper announces some awesome actors and actresses that will star in your film, including Jennifer Aniston, Quentin Tarantino, and even Penn and Teller. After you finish clicking on every scene to write it, you have to name the movie. And I had absolutely no clue what to name it. So I named it I Have No Clue, which I'll change it later.
Finished. Assignment complete.
This script is hot.
What an edge. What nuance.
Now get on out to production and shoot this thing before some two-bit hack steals all our great ideas.
The script is done, and now it's time to move over to production and filming.
Roll sound.
Sound speed.
Action.
After Spielberg shares his little piece of wisdom,
If you plan your shots and you stick to your script, I'm sure you're going to do great.
it's time for you to film your scenes. Initially, you're stuck with only one camera angle because you're a novice director, but the more you play this game, you unlock a higher movie budget, a longer window of time to work on, and way more camera angles to become creative. So as you click on your script and go through the scenes you wrote, you then watch pre-made FMVs of those specific scenes through the lens of your camera as if you were filming them. And as you film specific scenes, problems always arise.
We shot so late last night. All the costume houses were closed. I didn't have the pre-sizes when I left here last night. It's going to be an hour. Sorry.
The paint on the electric chair is still wet. It might be really dangerous if you try to shoot that now.
From costume issues to electric chairs having wet paint on them, you gotta make a decision whether or not to postpone filming that scene and film it a different day, or wait until things are ready to film. I always played it safe and waited, although it bit me in the ass with movie delays and over budgeting. I personally think this was all included to show how much of a boss Steven Spielberg is by being able to balance all this shit in real life. Making movies isn't easy, and this game definitely shows that. After you finish filming your scenes, you splice them and save them later for editing.
There's an old Hollywood saying that all great movies are made in the editing room.
Hi, I'm Michael Kahn, and a few of the films I've edited are Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jurassic Park, and Schindler's List. Editing is always fun, and each new film presents a new challenge.
Editing is really where movies are brought to life, and although most people probably hated this part of the game, editing was my favorite part of this game, especially because you actually get to contribute and play the game. You don't just force other people to do shit. The mechanics are not the best, but I loved how it took more of a realistic approach to movie making with cutting actual film. Digital was not as prominent when Spielberg was making movies back then, which means that film was manually spliced and joined together physically on a reel. In the game, you have to roll footage on the left side, and as you cut and manipulate your film, you place the end clip on the right side. This allowed you to be extremely creative and come up with fun new ways to tell your story. You don't have to just go with the generic scenes they gave you. Your video can be completely different than someone else who played the same exact game, depending on your editing style. After you finish editing your footage, you move next door to the sound effects. The sound effects room was also another awesome aspect to making this movie. As you watch your edited film, you get to overlay sound effects to give your film more depth and drama. Adding boots when people are walking, or a thunderstorm when things are gloomy, or gunshots when absurdity takes place. I chose to make a more accurate depiction throughout this process, but I could totally see a younger version of me mashing every sound imaginable to make the most ridiculous film. I always was so interested in sound design, specifically through the movie making process, and this little room brought it to life within this game. After you overlaid your sound effects, you had to go score your film, and honestly, this is where I felt like the game fell short.
You ever watch a movie on TV with the sound off? Something's missing, and it's not just the dialogue. The music that plays under each scene is such a critical part of movie making because it might set a delicate mood, it might make us cry, or keep us in gut-twisting suspense, or tell us when to be scared and for how long.
Film scores are pivotal to a movie, and Spielberg shares his gem of how impactful scores can be. Music is everything to bring out emotion from visual shots, and I wish I could just use John Williams to score this thing like Spielberg does, but this was the most disappointed I was throughout this entire game. The score room had little short snippets of instrumentation that you had to score your film with, called stings. But you couldn't adjust the music to the movie precisely, which ended up making a mess. You couldn't time sync a specific soundtrack to the actual scene, which really ruined the experience, honestly. I also didn't unlock the more experienced orchestras, so this may have been improved throughout later in the game, but scoring the film was very limited and honestly super unenjoyable for me. The movie is finally finished, but how do we get lazy people to leave their homes and show up to the box office? This is where the marketing department comes into play.
This is the room where you'll create the marketing campaign for your film. You'll have the opportunity here to create advertising that'll communicate to people all over the world the reasons they should go out and pay to see your movie. If your movie doesn't open to big audiences, you get to blame all the people in this room.
Spielberg told us that if the movie flops, we were able to blame the marketing department for that, which was a huge sigh of relief. In the marketing department, you get to design your movie poster, rename the movie, thank God, because if I was stuck with that title, I would have been screwed, and design your actual tickets to be sold. Right away, I knew I had to start with the movie poster, and I had a blast making it. Although there were slightly limiting aspects, I thought for an old Windows 98 game, they absolutely blew me away with the amount of creative freedom. It felt like Photoshop within the game, which was super impressive. You overlaid backdrops, added photos, added words, added text, added color, whatever you wanted to do. I created this absolutely beautiful poster starring Grandma as the main draw for this movie. And sure enough, the tickets sold out so fast. I renamed the movie The Lethal Leg, which will totally make sense after the fact. Then I designed my tickets, upped the price on them, then it was time to render my film in the lab.
The suspense begins here because this is the lab where your film will be processed, and it can take a while, so we'll keep you posted.
The lab is where you go to finally render the movie, and you have to wait forever for your movie to render. I think the game actually renders the footage and the music and everything within the game itself, so it took literally forever. And you can't do anything else but watch this room render the footage, so you are stuck until it's done. But once it's finished, your movie is ready to go, and it's time to take on the red carpet.
Good news. We got the release print back from the lab. When you've got the courage to come out of the bathroom and take a seat at the Premiere Theater, I'll join you there for a sneak preview of your movie. Now comes the real test.
A stretch limo pulls up and all of the people enter, and I was really excited to finally see the finished product. Spielberg walks out at the premiere and he introduces you alongside the movie, and it's finally time to watch your film. Here's a couple snippets from my absurd movie. I hope you enjoy it.
The scene, Ravenswood Prison. Behind these cold stone walls, Jack Cavello eats his last meal, hears his last rites, and at 12 noon will walk that long last mile to the electric chair.
I talked with Laura. She's sure those magicians have framed you, and she figured out a way to get backstage at their club. Stay away from me! Sleep.
If we only had more time. You're late. Let's walk.
Oh, Mom! Mom, are you okay? What's the matter?
My bursitis.
Your bursitis? Yes. What's your leg, okay?
After the movie is finished, you get to hear from the crowd audience of 15 people, like, how come this movie wasn't packed?
I would have done things differently, but I'm not the director now, am I?
And half of them are people who worked on the film with you, so it's not like they have any bias if the movie was good or not.
I sense a blockbuster.
I sense residuals.
Some people loved the film and they praised it, while others criticized the film and said they could do a way better job. But what can you do? You can't please everybody. After the movie premieres, Spielberg and the studio executives offer you another project because of its massive success.
You slayed them at the premiere, and the studio wants to sign you up for another picture with an even bigger budget, so go over to operations and sign in.
But essentially, your journey through this game has come to an end. Unless you want to go through the entire movie making process again with new camera angles, new scores, things like that, it's not really worth playing again. I really wish they had other movie scripts to choose from, like a western or a murder mystery rather than just the same story, but I understand the limitations back in the 90s. Overall, I would say that I did enjoy playing through this game, but I really wouldn't recommend it for other people. Although there wasn't much input from the actual player, I appreciated the effort and direction that Spielberg and the developers were trying to accomplish. Even if it wasn't a great game on its own, it could have inspired other developers or even gamers to get involved with making movies. And that to me is priceless. And to wrap this up, I just want to thank Steven Spielberg for the impact he had on my life and for always pushing boundaries through film and technology. So thank you, Steven Spielberg, for proving that if you put the work in and you strive for your dreams, anything is possible. Till next week, everyone.